So first, I would like to invite Laetania, Belai Djandam to share with us how the indigenous youth preserve the environment. Belai?
Can we give her thank you, Tanta Nana. Now, imagine an indigenous child born in the center of Borneo in the year 1950. That child would have been surrounded by about 51 million hectares of forest. They would have been largely isolated from the outside world and so would have lived a life the same way that their parents and grandparents did before them. Now, imagine an indigenous child also born in the center of Borneo 50 years later, in the year 2001, the same year that I was born in. That child would have been born into a world where most of that forest has disappeared, and into a world where vast connections to the outside world have been made. Roads, cars, the internet. They would have grown up with technology, modernity, and certainly they wouldn't grow up the same way that their parents and grandparents did. This shows how the world has changed. My question today is, how do we make sure that the culture doesn't die? Good morning, everyone. My name is Laetania Belai Djandam, and it is an incredible honor to represent Indonesia and the Dayak youth community to speak about how we, the youth, can help find the answer to that question. My parents' job have always been involved with communities and environment. And so I would come along to these remote areas all over Indonesia. I will learn about the traditions, the cultures, lifestyle, and their environment. I am a Dayak, the indigenous people of Borneo. As a Dayak, my parents' projects anywhere in Borneo excites me. So it was an honor when I finally got to meet with one community that my mom has worked together with for almost 4 years. They are called the Dayak Iban of Sungai Utik. They live in the beautiful rainforest in West Kalimantan. The Sungai Utik people are special, and they're special because their culture is still very much alive. They still live in a traditional longhouse, and they still live surrounded by about 10,000 hectares of customary forest. They live by the rule of protecting the forest and living in the Dayak Iban culture for generations. Under the guidance of Apay Janggut, the strong leader and forest guardian of the Sungai Utik, they are able to protect their forests from palm oil, illegal logging, corporate interests, and managing it sustainably for hundreds of years. Now, their first challenge came in 1970 when, under Suharto's New Order government, they began issuing logging rights to its companies. In 1979, they were faced with companies who wanted to exploit their forest because they were licensed. And again in 1990, Apay Janggut, the leader, was approached by a Chukong, a dubious land agent, who came and thrust a box full of dollars into his hands, saying that he wants to buy their rights to the forest. Now, the Sungai Utik is kind of like a microcosm of our world today. We also have land and forest that often face threats like money, power, comfort. But what makes them different is that in both occasions, they were able to say no. And they were able to say no because of their values. Before I left to come here, I met with Apay Janggut, and I told him I will be telling the story of Sungai Utik here today. He asked me to repeat this phrase that reflects the Dayak Iban values. It goes, "The land is our mother, the forest is our father, and the water is our blood." You can see that nature plays such a big role in their life, and even more, nature is their life. And so no matter how much money they're offered or how much power they can have, their values always lead them to choose nature, culture, and self-determination. Now, the reason why I opened with the question, how do we make sure that their culture doesn't die, is because culture, like people in Sungai Utik, are cultures that are key to what we know as natural climate solutions. They demonstrate how indigenous initiative can actually be feasible and supportive of climate action. However, we have two problems at hand. The first problem is that the indigenous community are facing a threat called change. Just like in the story of the two indigenous children, the world is different now. And so preserving the environment 50 years ago would be different from preserving the environment today. Yes, we still need to preserve the environment. Yes, we still need to protect the forest, but the way we do it is bound to change. That's why I would like to say that culture cannot survive as a museum. In an ever-changing world, the cultural values endure, but the culture must evolve. So my next question is, who is best to manage that evolution? Young indigenous people. Young indigenous people are best to manage that evolution because they are the ones that are born with the cultural values, but into the world of today. They are the ones that best understand the traditional world and the modern world. They are the ones that can bridge both worlds. And when they inherit the culture and resources, they also inherit a responsibility. And they understand that, and they want to do what they can to protect their environment, to protect their forest, to protect their culture. Now, the second problem is that due to these changes in the world, often the youth go out of their community to seek knowledge and experience, but then they forget to come back. This is why Apay Janggut believes the need of cultural identity empowerment. I see this happening with two of my friends from Sungai Utik. The first one is Yesi. She is a 16-year-old girl who aspires to be a medical doctor to help provide healthcare for her community back in Sungai Utik. She does this by going to Java to stay with my family and I to prepare her for medical school. And once she has graduated, she is committed to come back home to Sungai Utik to help. The second example is Kinan. He is a 15-year-old boy who speaks very fluent English and is a very good photographer. Kinan uses his talent for activism and to raise awareness towards the cultures and traditions of Sungai Utik and the Dayak Iban that he is very proud of. Both Yesi and Kinan are great examples of how a strong cultural identity keeps the community alive. Keeping the community alive means keeping the cultural values alive. And if the cultural value we are talking about here is preserving the environment, then they are the ones that are keeping our forests alive. However, not all indigenous youth still live in traditional ways. The Dayak youth community is a community for Dayak youth who live outside of Borneo, like myself, to come together and support the preservation of both our culture and our environment. The aspiration is for Dayak youth anywhere to be able to contribute. But no matter where they are, and no matter what their cultural background is, youth anywhere in the world can contribute to climate action. Take, for example, plastic in schools. Back in high school, I worked together with the Green Club of my school to start a plastic-free policy in our canteen. We were able to meet with the leadership team of our school, and they accepted our proposals. And so our canteen went from wasting hundreds of single-use plastic a day to zero. At the end of the day, young people everywhere in the world will be the ones that live with the ever-increasing consequences of global warming. But I am here today to state that we want to and deserve to be involved in climate action. We are not the stereotypes that some people would have us be. Youth and indigenous people are not inexperienced. We are not underdeveloped, left behind, unable, and we are not irrelevant. In fact, we're hopeful, we're visionary, we're energetic, we're passionate, determined, and we are the owners of the future that is at stake here. And so today, we demand recognition, assistance, and respect from those whose leadership in climate change is failing. Today, I would like to ask for you to give us the chance to become the leaders against climate change. And if we still have time, I would like to show a video about the Sungai Utik community. Thank you.